Hi everyone. Today, this afternoon, I'm here with Fergus O'Brien. Fergus and I are having a drink together in his bar, and we decided to do a different sort of format for this talk. We wanted it to be a little less serious, as we just, Fergus and I share a common history. We were both in three Commando, so we were both banana boys, lovers, and we were both in 14 Troop. Unfortunately, our time together didn't overlap, so I left 14 Troop as Fergus was joining. But we know a lot of the same guys, so we served with a lot of the same guys. So we have a lot of mutual sort of memories and things like that. And we just wanted today to be a bit of more light-hearted fun as we go through some of those memories. And you saw last time we did a little trailer where we went through Fergus's parachute logbook, and people really enjoyed that. So I thought we'd sort of carry on the same vein, going through some pictures, and I'm going to let Fergus talk a little bit about those pictures. I'll probably chirp in quite a bit because I can't keep my mouth shut. So, but he's going to be doing most of the talking, so he's not allowed to get too drunk. Okay, Fergus.
Yeah, hi guys. What we spoke about before starting this is maybe to bring up a few funny anecdotes. I think we've all had numerous battle encounters, so we're trying to avoid that part of the story and look at maybe the more funny side of events that happen in our careers with the army. And if I can just kickstart with one of them, those who knew me, I was pretty efficient with a machine gun in my days, but however, I was never known as a grenade thrower. And on two different events, I think I nearly killed my stick throwing grenades. The one time we went, there was some terrorists in a outbuilding it was an old storeroom and had very high windows. So I crept up to the back of it, threw a grenade to try and get it through the window of the thing, but the grenade bounced on the window and bounced back on our guys. So we all had to run and take cover. I was revved about that one, and not too long after that was another case where we had a guy behind a tree. We were trying to dislodge behind a rock in a tree, and we were battling to get him out of the position. And so I thought, well, the answer is a grenade. Threw a grenade at the tree, it hit one of the branches and bounced back at my guys again. So I think I was stripped of all my grenades off.
Gee, was anybody injured?
Yeah, I was never, no. We just get flat enough, you can avoid
it. Talking about grenades, when we all had that, when we did our coin warfare and conventional warfare phase, where we had to go down to the grenade range and throw grenades. And I remember we had some different types. In my day we still had those old Mills bombs that you had to assemble them in. Mills 32, I think it was called. And then we had the M962, which was a fragmentation grenade, like a NATO type of, and the M970 white phosphorus. Anyway, I think we were using old Mills bombs or something like that. But we went to the range, and there was a tall concrete tower with an observation thing on top of the tower. And Sergeant Major Moose Erasmus was in the tower. and I had Sergeant Richard Atkinson standing next to me. And you're supposed to hold it to your chest, and with the one hand you pulled a pin, and the other hand you
you got it mixed up.
I threw the thing, but I let it go here, and the grenade went straight down. It landed about a meter away from me. Fortunately, there was a little low wall between me and the grenade, and I looked over the wall, and the sergeant pulled me down, and the grenade went off, and the shrapnel pinged off the wall and everything. And then Moose Erasmus bellowed from the top of the tower, as only Moose Erasmus can bellow, sort of saying, "Who the hell threw that?" He said, "What did you do in Civvy Street? Flower arrangement." I wasn't very good at bowling grenades. Okay, we're going to have a look at some pictures now, and talking about Moose Erasmus. Yeah, so sitting in front there, the gentleman in camouflage with the broken nose, sitting next to, looks like a Captain Cooper, yeah, is Moose Erasmus, the guy who we were talking about. How was it was an 18-week course. Did you guys go to Ngezi?
We did. We did some exercises in Ngezi.
Like, I don't remember, was it a 120-mile march or something?
Correct. The 120 miles forced march, yeah.
Yeah. You got 4 days or something.
Yes, that was quite tough in this day.
It was quite tough. Yeah. We were sort of followed by a pack of hungry lions the whole time. And so we didn't get much sleep at night because literally these lions were pacing around us all night. We weren't allowed to light fires. They'd issued us each with one taped up magazine, I remember. Yeah. But we'd all managed to scale rounds from the range. So we had between us, we had about 20 illicit 7.62 rounds, which I remember we shot a kudu once. And had a very quick little feast because you didn't really have lots of time to have lengthy braais.
Not at all, you had to keep on the go,
Yeah, but that was one of my memories, was Ngezi 120-mile march.
Yeah, talking about stealing rounds and the likes and running the survival course at Wafa Wafa in Greba. We knew all the tricks when the guys came there. They'd all think they'd have unique tricks to hide food and the likes. And one of the big things was they would take the round head out and put a small fishing hook with either a fishing line or a matchbox with matches and the likes inside the rounds.
Okay.
So the first thing we do is march everyone down to the shooting range. And you get quite a variety of sounds coming out of those weapons. And that would dispose of most of the
so
contraband.
The percussion cap would still go off, but there was no powder inside.
They'd have a barrel full of fishing line and the likes, yeah. So that was the whole trick. And having done the course myself, you know all the tricks to look for. So a lot of the guys had their wives sew their shorts with fishing line, and there was a variety of tricks. So the guys would hide hooks in their hair and their beards. So to get around this, what we'd do is, firstly, they'd go to the shooting range. We'd fire off whatever they had in their magazines, and then we'd march them back. And then they'd be stripped and all their shorts are thrown into a pile. They had to jump into the lake for a good half an hour, 40 minutes, and up and down to wet any matches or matchbox pieces they may have. And then they would be stripped completely. Then we'd give them back other people's shorts, so they wouldn't know what was in the shorts. And we normally got around it, but some clever guys would get away with it. They'd find unique ways to get stuff in.
Okay, this is an iconic picture of 3 Commando. And there's a whole lot of captured weapons here, Fergus.
Yeah.
What was that about?
I think this bush trip actually was the record bush trip. I saw on YouTube there was another documentary on it where the most terrorists were killed in a bush trip.
I think it's over 80 or something.
Yeah, that's correct. That was part of the whole bush trip. But this particular battle, I think it was 36 hours standing.
Oh, in one contact?
In one contact, yeah. This was one contact. And the lads you see in the back, you'll see Bruce Snellgar with his hands in his pocket, with a uniform on, a couple of other guys.
That's Basil Dippener standing behind him, right?
The big lad standing up there, yeah. And on the right, the second guy to the right is George Galloway, quite a well-known character, a very good soldier, Scottish chap.
The blonde-haired guy looks like Charlie Norris, but it might not be.
I don't think it is.
Could
Charlie,
be Chris Cox, maybe. And then this second guy from the end standing next to the guy, that's George. Okay.
That's George there, yeah.
Okay.
And that was
Basil's the tallest guy in the picture.
And on the left, this chap was from Hungary or Czechoslovakia, I'm not too sure, Turink, something like a funny name.
Standing in the tent door.
In the tent door, yeah.
Yeah, and squatted on the ground?
I do not recognize him. It's very hard.
Yeah.
With the camera and that is to picture faces.
Yeah.
There, but
do you know what area that was in? Or?
I think that was the Matoka bush trip, yeah.
Okay, yeah, sure. That's a lot of weapons to capture in one go. Okay, here is picture number 2. It's you going on a Dakota deployment.
Young and handsome.
I was listening to a Delta Force guy saying he spent, I think, 4 years in the Airborne Ranger as a ranger.
Yeah.
And he said he hated static line jumps. He said almost every single one of them went to shit. And the first time he was in the army for 4 years before he did his first operational static line jump.
Okay.
And the wind was 30 knots. Apparently the wind isn't supposed to be more than 9 knots.
No,
It was nearly
12, you can get away with it.
And he was talking about guys getting dragged on the ground and their magazines grinding away. And he got blown so that he was parallel to the ground as he was coming down. And his pack, he got blown into a bombed out building, and his pack caught some rebar, and then he kind of pendulumed into a whole lot of rubble and rebar, and had a compound fracture of his leg. And anyway, he was just saying that he hated static line. And did you find it quite hairy?
Initially,
a lot of the time?
Initially, it was still a new thing in RLI to use parachuting into combat, So between the pilots and the commanders, army commanders, I think they had to find their feet. And eventually when they did, we were finding better LZs, landing zones, drop zones. Initially there was the idea to react to farm attacks at night. The idea was to drop in a 4-man stick in the middle of the night into the farm that's being attacked. And they did 1 or 2 trials, and there were a lot of injuries, and it wasn't worth the risk. Our biggest concern, one of my biggest concerns was landing on a fence line or a uprights or electrical poles or whatever. That to me was fear. I did a few landings in trees, which I thought were quite comfortable. But on the whole, I think one of the worst landings I had was on a hut roof. And I landed on the roof, and the chute collapsed, and I slid off the roof onto my coccyx. And I was rolling in agony outside the hut. And the hut door opened, and an old mama came out with a glass of water.
Classic.
So, But another anecdote too is the big raid was Chamoyo in our time. We jumped into that, and we jumped into elephant grass. It was extremely long grass, and it was very difficult to find your stick and the other guys to join up to form a sweep line, because the grass was so thick, and there were literally hundreds and hundreds of it that ran at us as we were coming down to escape the scent of the battle scene. And if you can imagine, you've had a parachute on for 2 hours since you took off, getting up and putting it on, and then waiting for the flight and waiting for the jump and all that. And I had to relieve myself. I was absolutely bursting. And with a jumpsuit, it's like an overall. You have to undo your webbing, undo your zip, pull the zip down, and then have a pee or whatever you want to do. I'm in the bush now, and all's going wild. It's absolutely hell going on. And here I am with my webbing off, my machine gun on the ground, and I'm having a pee. And 2 terrorists actually ran right into where I was. And I don't know who got the biggest fright, but I think they did, because they ran like hell and left me scrambling around trying to get my gun back. So I'm sure they would tell the same story to their friends.
I suppose you had to clap and you couldn't finish your pee. Oh dear, Fergus, that must have been funny. I mean, to actually be busted by a couple of the enemy while you're in the middle of ablutions. And here, was this a training jump?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
looks like
that looks like a training jump. We're not camouflaged.
Picture number 3.
There's no weapons on. There's no webbing.
Yeah. Okay. A fun jump.
Yeah. So
The Lovers. This is 1980. You had probably left the Lovers by then.
I would have just left.
Because I searched this picture for your name, but you were in Selous Scouts by then. Eh?
Yeah, I would have been a year in Scouts by now. By
Okay.
Stage, yeah.
Did you have to do selection and everything?
No, what happened? I went on a tracking course with Selous Scouts, and having passed the tracking course, I went on an advanced tracking course, which I passed, and I was then invited to come for an instructor tracking course. So I was, we've mentioned this before, I was given permission to go out on the condition that I would not change units and join Scouts.
Okay.
And yeah, so that's how I got into Scouts.
So you broke your word.
Well, I did, yeah. That was very good reason too, I think.
So that was the post-Ron Reed Daily days.
Well, no. Ron Reed Daily used to come to the camp on quite a frequent basis.
Okay.
I actually got a few photos with him with us. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, moving on. Tell us about this picture here, number 4.
Okay, for those who haven't jumped in that, you can see your weapon is strapped to the right-hand side of your body. It's held on just with a piece of rope. It goes around your neck and onto a cape roll. So you can't get to that weapon very easily. And there's a strap going around your body to pull it together.
Right.
So you would carry a 9mm pistol between your legs. That's for when you land, you could incur enemy immediately. So you had to have some form of defense before you got your weapon sorted out.
Was that a Browning high power?
We had, funny enough, we had 2 9mm with Star.
Okay.
So the young guys joining the unit would get the Star, and the older guys would get the 9mm Browning. Yeah, we all valued the Browning.
Yeah.
And so it was extremely uncomfortable, that shoot, and because it's pulled up very tight, and your back feels it's twisting, wearing the shoot. What we'd do is we'd have a call out, we'd run, get our kit on, get onto the plane, and you would see that most of the guys would reserve putting their camouflage cream on until we knew it was going to be a definite and not a lemon.
Yeah.
Because we'd be getting home that night, and good chance we might be allowed into town. You'd spend hours trying to wash the old camouflage cream off you.
Yeah.
So that was the last resort. We'd keep some camo in our hands, and as we were told that what was happening on the ground, as we see it was developing into a scene, we'd then camo up.
Right.
Yeah.
Any chance of getting that barrel through your foot or something?
No, not at all. No. But what did happen? You used to have to tape up the muzzle of your weapon, because often the muzzle would dig into the ground, forcing earth right up into the barrel.
Right.
So we'd have to tape the muzzle every time we jumped.
Right. How many belts did you carry, Fergus?
I carried in total 10 belts, which is 500 rounds.
Okay.
I'd carry a 50-round belt on the magazine.
Plus one on the gun. Oh, no, you wouldn't have
on the machine gun, and then I'd have 2 pouches with
5 in each kidney pouch. Yeah. Same as me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the standard grenades. And
I believe, I may be wrong, that our gun and ammo weighed 90 pounds.
that would be about 40 kgs. Sounds right. Yeah.
Sounds about right. I think the gun on its own weighed 29 pounds.
Yes, that sounds very right. Yeah. Just a point of interest. When we did Fire Force jumping on the parachute side, most guys would never take a sleeping bag or anything like that. You jump just with your webbing, maybe 1 tin of meat or some bully beef or whatever. You'd be very light on personal items. You wouldn't bring anything more than that, hoping that you'd be collected the same day. But on many occasions, you'd sleep like that for the night out, you know.
Okay, interesting.
Absolutely no sleeping bag or anything like that.
We mainly got deployed by helicopter, so we could take a little bit more. But I had a little 44 pack. I didn't have a Bergen. Okay. I had one of those little 44 packs. Yeah. And I was actually able to carry 10 days rats in there. And I carried 3 water bottles, which was heavy, with all my ammo and my gun. And my sleeping bag, though, was just 2 layers of parachute silk. Doubled, you know, and which I could actually roll up into the size of a fist and stuff it into my pocket.
Super, yeah.
So and it worked well because it wasn't too hot,
and
it kept the mosquitoes off you, because if you don't cover up, you're going to get eaten alive.
For sure.
And if you do cover up, you sweat all night. I mean,
Yeah, except in winter.
That's why they called us the PBI, the poor bloody infantry, because we,
But that was the nice thing about Fire Force. They would do their level best. The officer in command would do their level best to get the men back, so they're ready for the next day's next scene.
Yeah.
So they would hate to leave you out for the night.
Yeah. In that way, I thought Fire Force was a lot better than doing OPs and ambushes.
Yeah, definitely so.
Because you could get home every night for a cold beer and and have a shower. And,
we were based in Umtali, Grand Reef.
Grand Reef.
It was just outside Umtali, and we were allowed every 2 or 3 nights a week. We were allowed to go into town after hours.
Sure, that's nice. Yeah.
So that's hence the reluctance to put too much camo cream on. But
you guys were lucky.
It was stunning. I mean, that day you could go into action the whole day, and you'd get back, and you'd be having a cold beer at some little pub in Umtali.
Yeah, that night.
So it was very nice. Yeah.
For us, it was mainly the Mount Darwin Country Club.
Yeah.
In those days, we were allowed to use the pool. I believe later they banned the guys from using the pool at Jock Darwin. Here's picture number 5. We've only got through 5 pictures. We've got like 80 to go.
Instruction there would be stand in the door.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's basically myself there. We had one chap with us, Dougie Loader. I'm sure most of you 3 commanders remember Dougie. And Dougie was very skinny. And we used to always mock him that he wouldn't get past his paracourse. He wouldn't pass his paracourse because he never had enough weight to break the little seal on the parachute. When you jump, the static line actually breaks the seal and opens up the chute. On the one particular scene, he actually got jammed in the door. His weapon had a little clip on the top, and it caught on the side of the plane. And the whole secret with when you're jumping, that you jump as close as possible to each other, so you land as close as possible.
Right.
And with Dougie getting stuck, this created a hell of a gap in the continuity of the guys jumping. So I think they actually did a turnaround and they took him out on the second run here to jump.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, here we have a picture of guys getting ready for deployment. I think it's Grand Reef. I might be wrong.
Looks like Grand Reef.
Don't know too much about this picture. Perhaps if some of you guys do know about this picture, you can let us know in the comments. But it definitely looks like an RLI.
It's a Fire Force deployment.
Yeah, it's a Fire Force deployment, and there's obviously an interbriefing going on in the background there. Right, this is picture number 7. That looks like Charlie Warren standing with his back to us. I see he's got a revolver or something, 9mm strapped to his leg there.
So Charlie actually went as a dispatch. He was one of the dispatch guys who actually checked your equipment and kit before you got on the plane, and he dispatched you when it was time. And the guy sitting there is Gibson on the right, Charlie Norris. His birthday was yesterday, by the way.
Okay.
And Gibbs.
Happy birthday, Charlie.
Yeah.
We had another Gibson. Charlie might remember him, who was a national serviceman. Gibson and a guy called Viv Henning, who were old soldiers when I joined. You know, when you first join the Commando, you what's known as a Christmas tree. You know, because
all your uniforms so bright, isn't it?
and mostly the old soldiers don't pay you much attention.
No.
Until you've been in combat together, and then you kind of that's your hazing, where you get accepted into the ranks.
Yeah. There's another term which we won't mention on camera.
Is it okay? But Viv Henning and Gibson took me under their wing, and it was an interesting when I first met them. We were at Jock Darwin. On my first day, I was escort on the canteen vehicle, and Pudding Hudson managed to roll the vehicle over on the Mount Darwin Pass. Jeez. And there were beers and cokes everywhere in the bush. I thought we'd hit a landmine, but anyway, 14 troop a 14 Troop RL, Bedford RL, came over the hill with Sergeant Log Enslin standing in the back, and Log told everyone to debus, and they immediately silently walked past me, completely ignored Pudding, who was lying in the road with a broken shoulder, and myself, who was standing in the road with a weapon waiting for the war to begin. And they started opening beers as fast as they could. and that was my first day in the bush. I remember when we got back to camp, Viv Henning and Gibson were looking at their map, and apparently it was last light when the G car came to pick them up, and because of their camo, and in those days we didn't have day glow on the inside of our hats, so the chopper pilot asked him to turn his map upside down and wave it so he could see them. And when he did that, a terrorist promptly put 2 bullet holes through the map. And so he was showing me the bullet holes in the map. And I was just amazed. I was thinking, gee, this is so exciting. This is my first day in the war, you know, and it's all this stuff is happening, you know. Anyway, Gibson and Henning took me under their wing and taught me the ropes.
But old Pudding was quite a character.
He was a wonderful guy, yeah.
I recall Pudding would go get his case of beer from the canteen after 6, whatever time it was. He'd sit on that case, and every night he'd finish a case of beer.
Really?
He'd walk to bed as sober as a judge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I suppose his system was used to it.
And he certainly had the size. You know.
Okay, Fergus, here we have picture number 8. Which is a picture, quite an iconic picture of you. Apparently, I mean, this picture is quite famous. This was taken by Life magazine, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was. There were several lovely pictures taken by them, and which they gave back to us. Hopefully, you got them on this.
Yes,
this slide.
I have. Yeah.
But in that picture, you'll see I had a bit of a scowl on my face because it was some guy running around with a camera taking pictures, and I was basically telling him to get not to.
Yeah, I thought it kind of looked a bit like a 1,000-yard stare. But,
yeah, someone else has said that too.
Oh, no, I've always loved this picture. It, to me, is one of the finest pictures of the war, because there is something in Fergus's eyes, I think, and there's a look of I don't know, professionalism, you know, because you know, although we were teenagers, we were professional.
I think we were highly professional. That's
at what we did,
yeah.
And we were the tip of the spear. But it was another day at the office for us, and you had good days and you had bad days, but we were good at what we did, and I think the RR recognized that when they fought with us, because to them we looked like like boys, but when they fought with us, they respected us.
I think that discipline, the professionalism, it was, RLI had a culture where it wasn't just coming from the top.
Yeah.
Your peers actually got you into line very quickly. And I recall my first year in RLI when we were in the Hondi Valley, and that it wasn't the corporals or the sergeants or the NCOs we were scared of. We were scared of the old soldier. Because he would take no nonsense. If you didn't carry your rifle in a correct manner, he'd punch you. There was no nice talking. Yeah. If you snored while you were sleeping on patrol, you were woken up in a terrible manner. And it was that professional that just carried down all the way down the way, you know, and it carried on. And whilst there were a real bunch of hooligans in RLI in town, in the bush, they were absolutely totally professionals. Not the same people.
Isn't it funny how you can learn to sleep without snoring?
And sleep with one eye too.
Yeah, and sleep with one eye open. I don't know. Well, in my day, the officer commanding 14 Troop was Lieutenant Tim Bax, who ended up as a lieutenant colonel. But Tim used to hate doing guard duty, so if we had to spend the night out in the bush, invariably he used to split us up. So we had to sleep on our own, find a posse far away from, so that if insurgents found one of us during the night, they wouldn't find the other three. And many a night I woke up with a hungry hyena doing circles around my sleeping bag, or on those odd occasions where we had to lay an ambush, Timbax hated doing guard duty. So when it was his turn to do guard duty, he used to wake me up and say, "Hey, Van, are you asleep? Wake up, Van, wake up." I'd say, "No, sir, I'm not asleep. Thank you very much." "Van, have I told you that story about what happened in Vietnam?" "No, sir, you haven't." "Yeah, well, in Vietnam, the Terrs used to sneak up to the camp, and they used to turn all the claymores around, and then they used to make a big noise, and the guys used to set off the claymores and blow themselves up. I said, "Oh, that's an interesting story." So he wanted somebody to talk to while he was on guard duty, and invariably I was that guy, But Tim and I are good friends, and he was a wonderful officer. Yeah. But those are my recollections.
But in the latter parts, we did what they called in those days backup force, which was going into Zambia in small units and disrupting the supply chain, and the supply lines. And that was extremely difficult. You'd go in with 4 guys, drop quite deep, 50, 60 k's into the country, and all you walked, and you had to keep going at a hell of a speed. And when you saw something, you disrupted, you attacked convoys, you did whatever was happening, you disrupted.
Sort of like Selous Scouts, small teams.
You had no mission as such except disruption. And the terrible thing about it was that you weren't on radio contact. So you only had radio. You only got onto radio contact at designated hours at night time with the plane flying over, and they would talk to you there. So if you did hit the Dwang, you were in trouble there. And we had the one chap, Theo Milan. We were sitting resting the one day, and a cobra, a Mozambique spitting cobra, went across his legs while he was sitting, and he jumped up and it spat in his eyes. So we had a guy that was in bad condition, and there was no ways to get him back. But we washed out his eyes, and he seemed to recover all right.
Sure.
But those to say we were adding about guard duty, but being only 4 people, you can't ask the guys to do guard duty. It would kill them for the next day. It would mean another 4 hours of no sleep.
Exactly.
So what you do is just before dark, you'd bombshell, meaning you'd go in every different direction. You'd nominate a meeting place, maybe a high hill or tree,
which
or whatever.
is what Tim did,
Yeah, and then you'd find thick bush and just crawl into the bush and sleep, and you slept fine. We did that. Those patrols sometimes lasted 2 weeks, 10 days. It was quite hectic.
They say it's not about being afraid of being alone in the dark. It's about being afraid of not being alone in the dark. Fergus, here's picture number 8. A whole lot of choppers on, it looks like Matoko or Marewa or Fungui or somewhere like that.
It's definitely a 5-4 scene, choppers getting ready to take off.
Yeah.
They were the bells. I think we got them from. There's a lot of stories behind this, and I can't vouch for them being true, but the stories went that they were bought on a backhand deal from Israel. However, we were one of the units that used them initially when they got there, and we were flying into a camp in Mozambique, and the tail rotor came off one of the choppers.
Sure.
And it landed. So they were all pulled back to be serviced or checked, because apparently the service books weren't as accurate as they seemed to be.
Okay.
So there was a lot of stories behind them, but we quite enjoyed them. The only thing, what I didn't like about them, they were very fast. I think used to fly about 120 knots. But coming into land, they weren't like the Alouette. The Alouette could bounce you in there, meaning it could fly in, touch the ground, and take off. These needed to build up a bit of steam before they took off again. So, but they carried much more guys and the likes,
Okay. I was going to ask you, looking at your parachute logbook, when there's 16 of you jumping out, and I'm sure like these Hueys took, how many guys did they take? 12, so did you still operate in sticks of 4?
We always stuck to the 4.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Not like the Americans who had bigger sticks.
Now. The 4-man seemed to work for us, because you'd have your breakdown, your stick leader with a rifle and radio.
You'd have an MAG, and you'd have
machine
2
gunner,
riflemen.
and then one with a medic kit.
Yeah.
So you had a nice balanced little setup, and it seemed to work. The only time we doubled up is if we were doing patrols in Mozambique and the likes. Then we'd go 20, 30 people.
Okay.
Westhuizen, the guy on the left, that looks like that's Aussie Westhuizen. I don't recognise the other guys, newer chaps.
Is that some sort of anti-aircraft gun?
To me, it looks like something like that.
12.7
or something like that. I'm not too sure.
Right.
Yeah. And I think that came from the same time as the previous picture.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here's a familiar sight to me, the guys playing volleyball. In our shorty shorts. A lot of guys make comments about the Rhodesian Army shorty shorts, but they were all the fashion in those days. And we had the legs to pull it off. But we loved volleyball, for sure. We were good. Did you spend a lot of time playing volleyball?
Most of the time, In the end, we were really busy, but in between the call-outs, you'd spend as much time as you could.
Yeah, waiting for the siren to go. You'd play chess or whatever.
Oh, we never did too much chess, but you'd have refresher courses the whole time, medic courses and the likes in between.
Right.
In between the call-outs,
You guys were very conscientious.
Yeah.
I recognise Mark Pulbeam.
Christmas. Mark Pulbeam, for those who don't know him, he was terribly shot through the forehead, just to the side of his head, and exited through his other eye. So he lost both eyes.
Sure.
What a lovely guy, a really active guy. He loved sport and the likes, and he was sent across to St Dunstan's overseas in England, and he married his nurse that was looking after him. Yeah, so to you, probably, we all miss you, mate.
Shame, apparently that was in very thick bush. It was a sort of, literally the guy who shot him was like a metre away. Hiding in a thick bush, hiding in thick bush,
Harding, also another chap who lost his eye. He got shot through, also just by his ear and out his eye. And he tragically passed away in a silly little accident. But
sure. Yeah. Picture number 14, a whole lot of captured weapons, it looks like.
RPDs and your SKSs and your AKs. Yeah, quite a mixture there.
Yeah. Looks like a nice...
folding butt, AK,
or there anyway. Yeah. Cranbourne Barracks, the home of the saints.
Okay, so for those who don't know, this is the married quarters in Cranbourne Barracks.
Okay.
And but I won't say too much more about that.
Picture number 17 in the hot tub with the cold beers. Hot tub and cold beers.
Cold beers. That would be a typical picture. After the scene,
is that you in the tub there?
No, not at all. No.
Okay, picture number 21.
They're the old links. Stunning aircraft. Push-pull, as you say, 2 engines, one at the back, one in the front.
2 machine guns mounted over the cockpit.
The roof, 2 Brownings up there, And they were used as support to the fire force. As the fire force went out, they'd normally accompany us, and could often do the initial strike, put a napalm in, and whatever. They were very, very good aircraft.
Do you have any KCAR stories?
Yeah, look at wonderful, wonderful weapon. People like legends like Beaver Brown. Beaver Shaw, should I say. He had unbelievable accuracy with that gun. On a second or third round, he would be hitting target. It's bang on. A running person, whatever the case may be. He was extremely accurate with it. And, I think... It was lovely to have one of those above you when you're in action. It's just the sound of it firing and then hitting the ground, and stunning.
Could be very frightening though.
Yeah, I certainly think if you're an enemy.
No, I just remember on one occasion we were, I thought we were pinned down anyway, and we had landed behind a lot of Mapani bush, and as we were walking through these Mapani trees, there were two RPDs on an anteep, a large anteep in front of a mealie field, and a stretch of about 50 meters of open grassland. And as we exited the Mapani trees, these 2 RPDs opened up on us. And the first thing that happened is I got hit by a piece of bark in the side of my face, and I thought I'd been shot. So I went down and I feeling but there was nothing there. There was no blood. So then all sticks and leaves and everything were coming down on top of me, and I thought, okay, I'm pinned down here until I got kicked in the ribs. And looked up, and there was Tim Back standing there saying, "Come on, Van, give them a belt." So, with bullets whizzing all around him. Fortunately, I think these guys always tended to fire very high. So that's what saved us a lot of the time, I think. So I gave them a belt, which quietened them down a little bit. And then we formed a four-man extended line, which is not that threatening. And we walked towards this ant-heap. And as we got close to the ant-heap, there was this terrible cracking explosions, and it was actually the KK pumping rounds into the ant-heap. But the shrapnel was all going the other way because the KK was behind us. Yeah. But when you're in close proximity to those 20 mil HE rounds hitting the ground, I promise you, it's really frightening.
The only negative thing with HE round is that if there's overhead trees, they tend to explode above the ground.
Yes, that's the thing.
So
if you're under those trees,
it's lost its potential to have its accuracy. That's where I think they used to set their belts up or their charge with solids and HEs.
Okay.
So you get penetration power into
as well. Yeah.
But the old KK couldn't fire long bursts because it used to throw the whole aircraft out of
exactly. They're like
sync.
3-round bursts. It seemed to me.
Yeah.
Doof, doof, doof.
Yeah. And as I know it, I think they only carried 120 rounds.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But each one's like a hand grenade.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay.
Old deck.
Dakota, the Vomit Comet.
Yeah. Amazing. What a plane, eh? A lot of them had flown in Arnhem that we had.
I believe there was even a
plaque.
A plaque.
Yeah.
But,
amazing planes. That's Budgie Holmes.
Okay, that's Budgie Holmes.
Quite a character in the unit.
Yes, we all know Budgie.
And Budgie named after his big nose. But Budgie was a character. You'd get back from the bush trip and you'd end up in some pub drinking out of his veldskoen, his dirty old veldskoen. That was his typical party trick. Yeah.
Okay.
You see the stance, you're leaning into your machine gun.
Yeah, so it doesn't make you sit down. Yeah.
I used to do, while we were in the bush, we used to do practice shooting when we got opportunity, and I'd assist a lot with the machine gunners. And just a kind of few things I'd always make sure they'd learn is that when you fire at a target, fire slightly low to the target. So because you're not looking through sights or anything, you're firing from the hip. You'd pick up your dust strike where you're getting your strike, and you'd bring your gun.
Walk it up.
You'd walk it up in, and normally to where it's pulling. So you'd shoot to the left of the target and let it go up into your target.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
But also a very reliable gun. Very good.
Notice his left hand is holding the bipod.
Yeah. Now that I wouldn't do.
Yeah, no, me either.
My bipod would have been folded up.
Exactly the same as me,
yeah.
And I didn't use a belt, a sling, no.
I always swore with a sling, yeah.
Oh, really? No, I used to carry it on the pad on my webbing, on my yoke.
Okay.
And then just fire it from the hip like that. My first belt was 100% tracer. Yeah. So that, but sometimes it was counterproductive because it started a lot of bushfires.
That's right.
And then the smoke hit the target, So I didn't know whether it was useful as a sort of a laser sight or whether it was.
We used to do 1 in 5.
Yeah.
One tracer.
Yeah. All of my 10 belts were 1 in 5.
Yeah.
But the belt that was on the gun was all tracer. Anyway, that's how I operated. But most often, I don't think there were many contacts where I had to actually use a second belt, to be honest.
Yeah, that's, what you see on TV and what really in life,
Yeah.
Especially the riflemen, we all learned double tap. That was your modus, It wasn't, we never used to use automatic on the whole, I don't know. It was an individual choice.
It's on full auto, but you still only squirt off 2 or 3 rounds per.
Yeah,
And that way you save a lot of ammo. And
your accuracy, because your FN kicked, and it used to lift quite a lot.
Yeah.
Your AK had the compensator on the end of the barrel to assist it from stopping it from lifting.
Is that a 30?
That's the 303 rounds.
303 rounds,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah,
So it's not the 50 Browning, it's the 30 Browning.
Typical Bry.
Typical Commando Bry.
Yeah.
Looks like nice. You got pork sausages and you got chops. And
that's one thing we have to admit. They looked after us. The army actually fed us like kings.
Yeah, and the story here?
That looks like Grand Reef.
Grand Reef.
Yeah.
Okay, getting ready for
that's a 5-4
call out.
Yeah, one of the stories going on, the pilots used to tell us, they had a stick of Guard Force. Now, Guard Force was a unit that was dispatched to guard bridges and other assets of the country. And they were very basic guys, without saying too much wrong. And they were being deployed by a helicopter. And the pilot actually turned around to the guys and said, "Could you get out and give us a push? The bloody battery's flat." And that is a true story. They actually did try to push the battery, the chopper. And there was another case too where the pilot and the chopper reversed position. The pilot and the engineer reversed roles, and they changed the kit. And the real pilot was acting to be the engineer, and he said, I need to give this chopper a try. I'd like to fly it. But now all the guys are sitting watching this. The other guy said, "Well, give it a bash. You can only try." And they had led these guys on for some time like this. Sorry.
Okay, Chipinga Bottle Store, the 303 rifle. Apparently you only had enough money left to buy 5 rounds. Is that correct?
I was a youngster in school. I grew up in Malseta, if those people who know Malseta. It was a small little town in the Eastern Valley. And
which is near Chipinga, by the way. But it's about 20 miles away.
20 miles, yeah. If I was going to say about 40 k's
In fact, the road between Chipinga and Malseta was built by
the Italians.
Italian prisoners of war in World War II. It was a very well-built road. The Italians knew how to build roads, that's for sure.
But this is actually a strange story. This I was still in school, and I used to collect snakes in those days. My dad was working in the forestry in Malseta, and he designated one of the outrooms there, and he got all cages fitted, and I used to collect a variety of snakes. I actually got bitten by one of the puff adders I had, but that's another story. I'd sold off half my steak collection to buy a 303. In those days, I used to love hunting and the likes. So to get the 303, I had to take a hitchhike with one of the timber trucks to Chipinga. But halfway there, he dropped me off because he had to go a different direction. The place is called Skyline.
Yeah.
And Skyline was well known.
Junction,
Skyline Junction. And what happened that particular day, I was left at Skyline for maybe an hour waiting for another truck to jump on. And eventually I got a lift and I went through. And that particular day there, you can see it on the thing, I got a lift, came back. On my way back, there was a huge amount of police running around the place at Skyline. And they pulled me off and they said there'd just been a big robbery of the payroll going to the forestry. And I must have missed it maybe by 10 minutes. So these guys must have been sitting there while I was waiting for that lift. Literally, it was minutes. And thank goodness nothing happened. But no, they went on. That particular gang was ambushed that night by a Partu stick, and 3 of the Partu stick, all Malseta people, were killed.
Sure.
Collins was one of them. It was quite a tragic event, yeah.
Do you, another interesting thing that Fergus and I share in common is that I grew up in Chipinga and Fergus grew up in Malseta, which are sort of adjacent towns. And my dad was the Anglican priest at Chipinga, and also the Anglican church in Malseta was part of his parish, so all the way from Mount Selinda to Cashel Valley really was my dad's sort of parish. So Fergus and I both know, that we share the same geographical sort of history as well. Do you remember the murder of that Afrikaans farmer by the crocodile gang on that Chipinga Malseta road?
You know,
I'm trying to think of the guy's name. Was it Oberholzer?
could be. That name rings a bell.
Where they put rocks across the road, and he was driving a VW, a Volkswagen a combi, and they stopped, and he came out, and they beat him to death with rocks, and then they poured petrol over the combi and set it alight.
My goodness, yeah.
And I was talking to Jock Hutton, who was the Squadron Sergeant Major of SAS, and the SAS sent in a team the next morning, and Jock said they couldn't find any tracks, and they tried, and they did 360s all around, and these guys had just disappeared. And apparently they, in fact, the current president of Zimbabwe, Mnangagwa, he was head of the Crocodile Gang.
My goodness.
He was the one who led that strike. It was apart from the Viljoens, I think it was one of the first farmers to be killed in the Rhodesian War.
Yeah.
But apparently the terrorists who pulled off that attack actually crawled into a pipe culvert under the road and never left the scene of the crime. They stayed there, and that's the reason they couldn't find them, because they thought, well, these guys are long gone, you know. But meanwhile, they never moved. They stayed there.
I'm not sure if you remember the Boerters from Chipinga.
I do, yeah. Duff and the Odendals as well. Boerters and the Odendals.
I think I do remember.
And the Jabez, the Boerters, Jabez, and the Odendals.
But now, there was another gang in Chipinga that also took quite a few farmers' lives. Sue Turner was killed by them. One of the Boerter girls lost her leg. She was my ex-girlfriend.
Sure.
Yeah, and they suffered badly. And we went in.
They also lay that mine where Shirley Wicksteed lost her leg.
That's Shirley Wicksteed I'm talking
about. Oh, you're talking about Shirley?
Shirley,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow,
she was
your ex-girlfriend,
yeah,
really?
From Girls High, yeah.
Wow.
And but anyway, so what happened there?
Wonderful girl.
We were based in Grand Reef, and we were sent in to sort this gang out. Their camp was just across the border in Chipinga, into Mozambique, and that's where we lost Chappie Rosenfeld in that particular contact.
Sure.
Yeah, and that was quite a bad contact. But we got most of them. A couple got away, but we got the majority of them.
The Rosenfeld's family were good friends of mine. Well, we were at school together at Plumtree School. Of course, they came from Fig Tree. But what happened with Chappie? Was that were you there when that happened?
Yes, at that stage I was a stick leader, but Chappie was a new officer coming into our unit.
Right.
And I was requested to go in as a secondary, not as a stick leader, but as a machine gunner, just assist him where he needed it.
Right.
And it was a pretty basic scene. We went in there. We got into a few contacts initially when we landed, and then we swept into the camp. It went pretty well. We took a few terrorists down, and that's when we were sitting around in a camp waiting to be picked up. When I saw a handbag, and in that handbag was Shirley Wicksteed's driver's license. So you can imagine the shock of that. You know, these are people that were very, very close to me. Anyway, before we sat around the camp waiting to be picked up, and then they said to us, you two of the sticks just must sweep a bit of thick bush to the south of us. It was only a small area, and that they'd pick us up straight away afterwards. And we formed a sweep line. There were two sticks, the one stick on the left. They went around this one bit of bush. That was Charlie Warren's stick. Our stick went through, and we had to go into, because of the thickness of the bush, we had to form a single file with the one flank Grace, which was on the left. He was about 8 meters to the left, and the three of us, we were in a single file. And with the thickness of the bush, there was a trench. Now, I don't think it was a natural trench. It looked like it had been dug. It was a very square kind of trench, but it had overgrown with bush and weed. So you couldn't actually see that there was a trench until you're on it, until you're literally nearly falling in it.
Yes.
And what happened in a single line, Battaglia, an American guy, his brother was killed in Zambia with us, and he stayed after the funeral and joined RLI. And Italian-American. And he was the first to, as he reached the trench, we were about a meter apart. firing came, quite heavy firing, and he was shot several times, and he fell into the trench, still alive. And we took cover. Charlie, Chappie, and myself took cover on the edge of the trench. I offloaded quite a few rounds into where I thought the firing was coming from. The firing ceased. So we thought we had sorted the problem out, and we were both leaning over the trench to pull Battaglia out of the trench. When this guy stood up and fired into us, Chappie was hit in the head. I was fortunately not hit. I don't know, by hook or crook. I don't know. I got out.
You were right there.
The guy literally was standing over us, and the way we were lying down, I couldn't swing my weapon to return fire. But after a while, with the choppers flying over and the likes, he would duck every time there was aircraft over us, and I managed to get my weapon around and fired a few shots at him. Charlie Warrenstick crawled in to assist us, and Chappie, it was too late for Chappie to help him. But Battaglia was wounded in the neck and arm and back and all over. He was fine. We could still sort him out, and we got him out of the scene. Charlie advised that there was no bodies there where the trench was. And the next day, the guys went back, and they found the terrorist involved. He was dead. Yeah, so he was hit somewhere in the action.
Sure.
Yeah, that was quite a horrible scene.
Apparently, at some point, you said the guy actually stood over you and looked at you, and you just pretended to be dead.
We were both. If you could imagine that you were both leaning over the trench. So my weapon is in the grass and it's a machine gun.
Right.
It's not something you can.
Wasn't accessible.
No, at the where the angle was, and he was standing to my right as I was looking at the trench, and I could see him from the side of my eye.
Yeah.
And he fired.
Peripheral vision.
And then the chopper came over, and I'm trying to move my weapon to face him, and he would duck down, and after it felt like hours, but anyway, Charlie said it wasn't that long. Eventually, I got my weapon straightened out and fired it 1 or 2 shots before it jammed because all the grass and everything was stuck in the belt. And
gosh.
Yeah, so it was a funny scene.
Gosh.
Yeah.
That sounds very heroic.
Yeah, and that's all basically. Yeah.
Okay. Here is a letter of commendation, looks like, written by RSM Taylor.
Derek Taylor, yeah.
Derek Taylor, Bronze Cross of Rhodesia, telling us what a wonderful guy Fergus O'Brien is. What's this picture, number 36, Fergus?
Isn't that Derek Taylor there? Looks
okay,
like him,
he's number 2 in the line?
Yeah.
Sitting down?
Yeah. It looks like him.
Okay.
There's Cronin, John Cronin.
Oh, is that John Cronin?
Yes, there's
Paul
Paul Abbott.
Yeah. Paul Abbott, okay.
Yeah. Paul Abbott, good chap too, very good guy. Ex-British parrot.
I just listened to a long talk that John Cronin gave on a...
Yes, I saw that. He was a character, John Cronin. To leave out the war stories, we were doing a patrol, not a patrol, we were actually looking for a terrorist camp in Mozambique. So we were in quite a large patrol, and which Cronin was leading. He was a lieutenant in those days. And anyway, there was a Frelimo truck coming along the road, and we decided to ambush it. And as it crossed a thick riverbed, John Cronin stood out in the middle of the road and in his American accent said, "Stop right there."
That's right.
And these poor guys in the back of the truck just did not know what was going on.
That's that rifle cleaning kit that you showed me with a bullet hole
through it. Yeah.
And apparently he got a, what did he get, a Bronze Cross for that?
Yeah. But old Percy Hodson actually took the driver out with a wonderful shot. A sniper
I knew
shot.
Percy Hodson very well.
You would. Yeah. Quite aggressive little
Also
guy.
14
Yes, yeah. He took the driver out. Perfect shot.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Gosh, I didn't know about that. Hippie Hodson, we called him.
Yeah.
Okay, here's a party. There's Budgie Holmes.
That's
again.
Budgie. Keith Layton. Mike Karolski.
37.
Mike Cunningham.
Oh, this is Sergeant Major Momsen.
That's correct,
That looks like Ron Reed Daly there.
Could be, yeah. Yeah.
That's Brigadier.
That, yeah.
Oh man, what's his name? The guy with the hair sticking out of his cheeks.
No, you mean, yes.
Hey,
Yeah.
isn't it?
He was quite renowned
This
for that.
must be an old picture.
Yeah,
Eh?
it is an old picture.
Yeah.
A lot of these pictures weren't personal pictures; they were given to me.
Yeah. So there's no backstory on the guy drinking out of a puddle.
No, that would be normal. That was definitely not abnormal.
Yeah, I can tell you a story about doing a clandestine op and having to do a water party in the middle of the night. I had to sneak down into this village and fill everyone's water bottles, from the local village watering point. And we'd obviously all run out of water, so we were all freaking thirsty. And I can remember dipping my water bottle in first. I had those lovely old aluminium ones.
Yes.
Which
They stay cold.
they stay cold, And I remember I was so thirsty, I wanted to fill my belly up with water and then refill my water. So I glugged away almost that whole water bottle, refilled everyone's, went back the next, that night. It was pitch dark, obviously, and the next morning I poured the water out to boil myself a cup of tea. And it was full of mosquito larvae and tadpoles and cow dung and everything. And no wonder our immune systems are so strong.
It's unbelievable how we got through this lot, without picking up some.
We never used those water tablets they gave us.
You can start aging photos by the surroundings. For instance, that weapon, it's FM.
Yes.
But it's been painted. It's been camouflaged.
Exactly.
And when I joined the first few years in Hotline, I mean,
we never painted.
You never touched your weapon with paint. And then in the latter years you did,
And the pack, the Bergen.
The Bergen. It's good Bergen.
The
watch covers.
We had watch covers, I must say, but we never wore longs. We always wore shorts, and we never wore long sleeves either.
No.
We wore t-shirts. Looks like a TR-48 radio battery pack or something. I don't know.
Big,
But that's a good scene. That you don't put your water purification tablets into a pool like that. You just drink it.
If it was that bad, you put a tea bag in it.
A tea bag in it.
That's Mike Gorolski.
Mike Gorolski again.
And that's Taylor, Rod Taylor.
Okay. Okay, tell us about the 3 Commando parachute wings.
Well, I proudly wear them on my arm. It's something, it was amazing. I can't believe how proud we were to get our wings. When you walked in town, you'd walk here with your shoulder leading. That badge meant so much. We were extremely proud of.
But there's
Battaglia. No, that's the first brother. He was killed with us in Zambia by a Zambian soldier. And then his brother came. He was Italian American, and his brother joined us. He looked very much like a Mexican, actually, very dark skinned and dark hair. His brother joined and stayed, and the brother got shot then in that scene I've just mentioned. That's Joe Burns, the JP Burns.
Okay.
Joe Burns, we always suspected as a CIA agent, which we think I still do believe.
I heard that. There's Chappie Rosenfeld.
Now Burns, I had a call from his nephew from America, asking the background to Burns if I believed that he was a CIA agent. I said, well, the fact that he flies home on R&R to America and comes back
every time,
says something. And he said, no. Why he asked that he read an article in the Soldier of Fortune magazine that Joe Burns was a CIA agent. So I think there could have been a bit of truth behind that story.
Now these 2 guys were my best friends, Harry File and Matt Lamb. If I'd have signed on as a regular, I would have also been we were all made Lance Corporal at the same time, but unfortunately it was when I was demobilized, so my Lance Corporal was never confirmed. But Harry Farr was killed in action, and so
it was just before I joined. Yeah.
Okay, this is another Life magazine picture.
Yeah, that's the other one. A very, very good friend of mine, Burry.
Burry Hume?
No, not Burry. No, but a very tough guy, very strong, and an exceptionally good machine gunner. I think the setting of the picture is brilliant. You know, with the village in the background and taking a smoke break. You know.
I like the veldskoens.
Yeah, typical, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I always used to wear veldskoens, no socks.
Yeah. That's just kitting up, getting ready to go.
Who's that?
That's myself on the left. Baby. I was 17 years old then.
The guy staring into, is that not Willie Lindeque, is it?
It is.
Willie Lindeque?
Yes, very much so, yeah.
I knew Willie Lindeque,
yeah. You see, I missed the name there, but it is, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is
Wasn't he on the cover of Contact, the Contact book?
He possibly
the MAG?
could have possibly, yeah.
Yeah, no, I knew Willie Lindeque well, also 14 Troop. Okay, now I recognize some of these faces. This is a parachute course.
That's right, yeah.
That's little Chris Bernard sitting in front. Often he was in my stick. Kevin Taylor there, 14 Troop. So there's some 14 Troop guys here.
Yeah, there's
Fergus O'Brien right at the back in the middle there.
Do you remember Thornton?
I don't. There's John Norman, isn't it?
No. He was a British dispatcher. There's John next to him, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, sitting on the sitting down on the end.
That's Charlie Norris, Schultz.
Charlie Norris, Schultz, yeah.
A lot of the names I battle to remember.
Is you in the middle there?
We used to get our helmets and
picture 67.
So it was our responsibility to camouflage our helmets. So I put challenge stripes on mine because I normally got to the ground the fastest, being the heaviest. Okay, so we had just come back from the backup patrols. Yeah, we had just got back, and there's a couple of sticks here. What would be? It looks like 3 sticks there. And I just showered, a couple of us had just showered. We just come back from the Zambia, I think. But some classic guys in this picture.
Mark Pilbeam with
his eyes,
the hat on, yeah.
This is Roger England. Roger England was the guy that was arrested on the coup attempt in Seychelles.
Okay, yes.
And he was sentenced to death.
Oh, wow.
And they kept him, if you recall the videos
Standish White.
If you can recall the videos of the trial, he was the guy they dragged in and his face was quite badly beaten.
Okay.
And he was kept, and he was saying every second day they'd come and say, make arrangements, we're going to put you down today, we're going to do executions today.
Sure.
And that went on, and then eventually they took a lot of the restrictions away from him. He was allowed to go around the island and the likes, and he became friends with the president and all that. And eventually, I met him when he got back. I shared a flat initially with him. Very nice chap, ex-British para.
Yeah.
Very nice chap. I haven't heard from him for a while. Okay, then to the left is Charlie Warren. And just above him is Charlie Norris.
Charlie Norris, yeah.
Okay, we said that's Pilbeam with the brown hat. I can't, English chap, I can't recall his name. That's Keith Layton without the shirt on.
Right.
And Ian Folds down the bottom.
Okay, and the guy at the back?
That is Noxie. And that's Oosthuizen, and he subsequently has committed suicide.
Right. Oh dear.
I can't see who that is. Yeah.
Okay.
But each of those guys had his own role in the whole thing. They're quite individuals.
I wonder where that picture was taken.
That was, I can tell you right now, it was on the Zambian border.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
There's Budgie number 2 with the
Budgie,
Budgie at the end.
Yeah.
With
and then McLean above him and Fenter next to me. He was in my stick when he got shot, actually. He's still alive though. And then Nick the Greek on the left.
Okay. So we also had fun with these in the SAS Klepper canoes. They used to clip together.
Yeah.
With a canvas skin over them.
That's correct. Yeah.
Yeah.
We were just doing training there. That's on Kriba. Just training.
Okay. Is that at Wafa Wafa?
No. That was in Kriba itself, the
Kriba
town area. Yeah.
Okay. There's Basil.
Basil Dipnar.
Basil Dipnar playing the guitar.
He was the character of the unit.
Okay.
That was Wafa
Wafa. Yeah.
That was the main instructor's quarters in Wafa Wafa. Now, your students would have to camp around in a half moon around that particular building.
Okay.
Okay, so, yeah, they used to go through a tough time there.
Right.
Yeah.
Looks like a beautiful
Stunning,
campsite.
stunning, yeah. There's your Selous Scout badge there. If you see that closer, you'll see.
And there is
That's
our
nice.
hero, James Bond,
With a beard.
with a beard and a spear gun.
Yeah.
And a huge fish that he's
No,
just
that's
speared.
it, it just fitted on. Yeah.
You do a lot of spear fishing.
We did a lot, yeah. You know, and when I first got there, to my horror, the couple of guys there, Clements and the likes, all said, right, we're going diving tonight, we're going spearing tonight.
Is that Pete Clemens?
Pete Clements.
Yeah.
And I said, sorry, what are you talking about? You're going spear fishing at night time with a lake full of crocodiles. And they said, yeah, we do this every night. And they would take the little army boat with two 12-volt batteries on it, and you'd have a lead going into a sealed beam, which is siliconed off, and one guy would hold the torch, the other guy would shoot. I can tell you, it took me a while to get used to that.
Sure.
You know, we had a lot of interruptions from Hippo and Crocs and all types of things.
Oh, my word, you
that
guys
was
are
quite
crazy.
hectic. Yeah, that was silly.
That was well, Fergus. Thank you so much for your time. I've had a
thank
lot
you,
of fun.
John.
We only had two.
Yeah.
We only had 2 whiskies each.
We've been talking too much, I think.
Yeah, but we've been going for 1 hour, over an hour, but I thoroughly enjoyed it.
It was good.
A lot
Thank
of fun.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks, John.
Awesome.